It can be daunting to zoom out and observe creation, most of which we will never experience, never see, never even see photos of. It's daunting to imagine a God, a creator of all of that emptiness, all of those galaxies, all of those stars, all of those planets. It's difficult. It's difficult to grasp how vast and how complex creation really is. And our lives, our problems, our existence, our needs and our wants and our dreams, no matter how big they are, they seem to get swallowed up by that great big ever-expanding universe. Have you ever felt like it's difficult to approach God because he's just so incomprehensible? Or has it ever been difficult for you to really approach God personally, intimately? When we try to wrap our heads around this all-powerful being, it can be pretty unbelievable, pretty hard, and it can seem like a barrier, a roadblock in that getting close with God and getting close with the Creator. We can get close with the man Jesus, the God who humbled himself, became a human, but God, the Creator, how do we humans, creation, how do we get close with God? Now, McCann, he mentioned during our Dream Giver series that this is really what gets in the way of his seeking God, and I know it does for a lot of people. At times, you have to abandon the here, like what you can see, feel, touch, right? What you can otherwise know or sense for this invisible seeming God, this incomprehensible being of just incredible power. And I'm sure we've all felt that way at times. At least once in a while, we have to stop and think, wait, that's crazy. That's insane. Just how incredible God really is, how incredible creation is. And so I can promise that, though, not only is it possible to get close, to feel that intimate connection with God, the Creator, but I can also guarantee that each of us here in this room have actually felt this connection, this closeness with that incomprehensible God. And we're actually going to be able to get into detailed descriptions of our encounters, of those intimate moments with great, incredible, unknowable God. And that's not just us believers, everyone in this room. And so if you want to grab Bibles, we're going to be looking at Psalms chapter 96, verses 11 through 12. All right, so last week we looked at Psalms talking about what we're looking at in this series, to desire God, right? The goal of this series is that we deeply desire God, like in the example the psalmist used is in last week's passage, wandering through a desert, that lip-cracking, dehydrated, I need water, I'm desperate for water, and longing, which in the Hebrew, I believe is chokmah, and it means this craving so intense that your whole body becomes tense to the point of you risk passing out and fainting. This week, this chapter in Psalms talks about worship. So creation itself, the earth we walk upon, the fields we take from, the whole universe worships God, sings praises, expresses joy, and is simply rejoicing with gratitude. Now, let me ask some very specific questions. Have you ever stood before the ocean and just watched it kind of stretch out to the horizon and then felt like just swallowed up by it? Or humbled and at peace when you're walking under a canopy of trees? You just look up and wow. Or camped out and gotten out of the city and just looked up at the stars in the sky and billions, where you just look at these lights and you can't even begin to count them and to just think of how wonderful that is, and just been left breathless. For our camp people, or we've had moments at concerts, or the occasional church service that just leaves us feeling connected to something greater. These feelings of being closer to life, to creation, or we've been left speechless, or amazed, or left in awe. I'm sure we've all had moments like these. I would even argue that in our worst moments, in our most heartbreaking moments, we feel connected to God. We feel connected to that all-powerful Creator. Because when you think about it, when something bad happens, we label it, we assign it the label bad. Something bad has happened to us, to the world, to our friends, or an injustice occurs. Our hearts grow heavy. We feel it in our bones. We feel that something is not right with creation, with this life that we've been given. We know that this isn't the way it should be, that life, it's a gift. It should bring peace. It should bring joy. It should bring gladness. It should bring the song of praise, not pain, not loss, not oppression and grief and injustice. And so our hearts, it cries out. It begs for these awful things to stop. It begs for justice, and we're just begging to be held. I know we've all had moments like either of these, probably both of these, and probably several times throughout the year. Swallowed up by greatness or in pain over injustice. These moments of wonder and of awe of creation, they're natural expressions of the heart as it stirs to join the chorus of the universe. Like we read in the passage today, how all of creation cries out and sings and worships God. Our hearts stir as well, boldly joining in with the rest of creation. This is what Scripture is defining as worship. It's defining as that state of longing, of thirst for God as we join in that chorus. And so, therefore, it's not that God is hard to get close with or that intimacy with the Creator is incomprehensible, because we've all actually done it. We've all felt it. We've all been there, and we can all point to very specific moments where we felt these ways in this manner. In fact, it's not even just something we've all felt, that we've all experienced. It's something that, as we read last week, we can earnestly seek, we can earnestly pursue. We can actually, I don't necessarily like the term recreate it, but we can make it so these experiences aren't just random. I've expressed a few of these ways: standing before the ocean, looking up at the stars, being under a canopy of trees, going to camp, going to these big concert moments, going to church service and feeling connected, healing that happens, that occurs in relationships and in the body. These moments can bring us closer to God. But we don't always recognize that as worship. We don't always link that to the Creator. Those stars are great, but that's all they are. It's just the universe. This canopy of trees is beautiful, but it's just random seeds that happened to be planted a while ago. So we give it a different label or name. It's not seeing that our souls in that moment, that our bodies, that our emotions, that our hearts are joining that chorus, that are crying out for our Creator, that are praising Him and bringing Him glory. The atheist or the agnostic, they're going to wander from experience to experience, longing for this closeness with God, desperately searching, and occasionally everyone's going to stumble upon Him. Again, everyone in this room has had a moment like this, I would bet. A moment where you're just left in awe, where you feel connected, or you feel great healing, or great pain and heartache and suffering. Of course, there's going to be the occasional stumbling into the wrong places, seeking that feeling in the wrong places, being filled then with an emptiness or a brokenness that I'm also sure many of us have felt before, where we're like, man, I need to believe there's something greater out there, and we look in all the wrong places, we seek it in the wrong places, we adopt habits that are not correct, and it leaves us empty and broken and desperate and searching again for new answers over and over again. And when we give our lives to Christ and we learn from His words, we find that He, Jesus, the Bible, the Scripture, God, teaches us how we earnestly search for Him, which was our passage last week, that we earnestly seek Him. And so it's not just left to wander, to question, to hope desperately that sometimes we're going to stumble upon a good moment. But He teaches us how we earnestly seek Him, earnestly seeking Christ, earnestly seeking life, and earnestly worshiping the Creator. So last week we built an important foundation for the series. We defined what it's all about, what this Falling in Love with Jesus series is all about. We have felt separated from life. I'm sure we have, where we've been stuck in that repetitive pattern where we're just merely surviving. We're doing what we have to do. You do what you got to do. Every day, every week is spent just going through the motions, hoping desperately that we can get out of it. But of course, the next day we start it all over again. The next week we start it all over again. The next month we start it all over again. And then by the year's end, we have all these great big resolutions. And by this time, those resolutions fall flat and we're stuck back in the pattern. And that idea of working out, it was cool, but it's not going to stick. That idea of really stepping it up in my work or in my relationships, it was great, but the pattern, the habits, well, I've gotten stuck back into that pattern. So we feel separated from life because that's not living. That's survival. That's you are alive. That's not life. That's not a blessing. That's not a gift. That is, again, rote survival. And so we become disassociated with it, with life itself. And that happens for a long time. We seek what Christ calls us to do. That's what that passage last week was really getting at when he says, leave it all behind. Don't even say goodbye to your family. Don't even bury the dead. And that's harsh. That's crazy. But that's what he's calling us to do, is to leave that dead life behind, that mere survival. We leave that behind. We leave the big dream of when I'm 70, I retire, and we seek Him. We seek Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. We seek Christ, who brings in this dangerous life, this life that calls us to some extreme and extraordinary and dangerous and very uncomfortable, to say the least, lives, yet lives that he also promises us leaves us satisfied for the day. So we leave the old life behind, we seek Christ, and we find this new life. That's what we talked about last week, and now we talked about how we've each had moments of dangerous wonder, moments of being in awe, moments where, whether we realized it or not, our souls joined that wonderful chorus that the rest of the universe, that the rest of creation, that those stars, those galaxies are all worshiping the Creator. In a moment, we're going to work on drawing those out in more specific terms. But let me share my own real quick, very briefly. Suffering from suicidal depression for many years, a lot was taken from me. You find pieces of yourself are just taken, they kind of drop away. Whether they're ripped from you forcefully or you watch them kind of slip through your fingers like sand. But among the most difficult of these pieces of myself that were taken was vibrancy of the world. As a kid, I remembered very clearly greens, blues, yellows, reds. They were vibrant, meaning greens were deep greens that brought a sense of peace. Reds are furious and they're bright and they're exciting, and blues were my favorite shades that can bring peace, that can bring excitement, that can bring calm, cool, and refreshing. All of these, I remember, and I watched slowly become duller and less impactful, less vibrant, less meaningful. I like to use the example of an allergy commercial, and when I say a gray film was over my eyes, everything lost its vibrancy, where greens were dull green, blue was gray blue, yellow's dull gray yellow. All the colors start to become dull and gray. I'm not using that in like poetic language to try and like get a point across. I mean, literally, I would see colors less vibrant. By the grace of God and a lot of hard work, I've finally and can confidently say that I caged my depression. And so there's been a lot of joy and wonder and worship that's come from that. But the greatest of these moments began, I was sitting on my front porch the summer afternoon in 2023, just thankful, and I happened to open my eyes, pay attention to what was around me, noticing the pink roses in several shades of pink and red, and then up at the deep green pine in my front yard, and it was all silhouetted, backlit by that bright blue sky that I hadn't seen since I was a kid, and I really do mean that I hadn't seen those colors in a long time. They were dull, they were gray, and now I was seeing them in full effect. And that moment was an all-encompassing, oh, I fall on my knees, I'm in tears, worship God kind of moment. But there are quieter moments too, like walking, hiking, and being in nature. Rivers are a place for me where flowing water it brings me to that peace. Moments in church, we just had several baptisms. Yesterday, I was just weeping openly and had to remove myself because I don't cry in public. Moments on a beach, the moments where you just stop and consider God, consider your place in the universe, consider His love for you. Quiet moments, joy-filled moments, connected moments, moments where you feel like anything is possible, simple moments where you look at creation. All you can think of is, wow. We've all had personal examples of these types of moments. Or again, awful moments, traumatic moments. I honestly think if we take the time and, like the Psalms last week said, earnestly seek Him, which means make an attempt. Doesn't mean we get it right away, but make that attempt to seek Him. We find that it's not an obstacle, that our God is so big, so powerful, so outside of the laws of space and time. It benefits us because even the trees are worshiping God. The ground beneath our feet is worshiping God. Everything in us and around us and above us and below us is worshiping God. It all points to that Creator because He is so incomprehensible, because He is so powerful. And so every moment of our days is drawing us, urging us forward, upward, towards our Creator. I want everyone to close their eyes. And I want you to take time right now to think of moments like this in your life. Moments like I just described. Moments that elicit that feeling of connectedness, of joy, of peace, of worship. Times at camp when you volunteered or been a student or a camper. Hikes out in nature, looking up at the stars or out at the ocean. Moments of wonder or of healing or of peace. Keep searching in your minds for the most meaningful ones. A bunch hopefully come to mind of moments like these, but try to search for the most meaningful one, the one that impacted you, the one that really did leave you feeling connected on a deeper level than you've ever felt before. Euphoric even. Remember the scene, picture it in your minds. Remember what you felt, the sound, the smell, the sight. Remember every detail about that moment. Remember how the moment made you feel on the inside? Was it humbled? Was it small? Did you feel connected or at peace or just quiet? Were you impressed, in awe, breathless, speechless, thankful? Maybe it left you in tears. Really take time to recall every single detail. All right, you can open your eyes. So that feeling, that moment is worship. That is worship as the Bible defines worship. And worship is how we, mere humans, mere creation, enter into fellowship, which is just that close, intimate, personal relationship with the Creator. This is how it feels as we seek God earnestly, which is the goal of this series. That is the what to what we're doing, that we earnestly seek closeness with God. This is what it feels like. This is when we approach the unapproachable. While we may not comprehend him, we certainly have felt him. We have felt closeness with him. We have felt that personal relationship with him. And so remember, we're earnestly seeking God. We're earnestly searching for God. We're earnestly seeking that closeness with God. Some days that search comes up empty. We're not talking about a state where 24/7, every second of the day, you're in that moment that you just remembered, in awe and speechless and in tears. Some days are boring. Some days are going through the motions. It happens. It really does, and that's okay. It's okay to not be in that constant state of wonder, but I do encourage you to reflect and ask, does it have to be as rare, as sporadic, as random as it is now? How do we seek that more? How do we seek that in our everyday life? How do we have those moments at work? How do we have those moments in every day? Because that's what this new life in Christ is all about. It's about having these moments of worship wherever we're at. It's about being Christ-like and having that love and reflecting that love wherever we're at. In our homes, in our works, in our schools. So does it have to be as random and as sporadic as it is now? Meditate on that passage in Psalms. Psalms chapter 96, verses 11 through 12. As we leave our old lives behind, and we are seeking Christ, earnestly seeking Christ, therefore seeking life itself, we join the stars, we join the trees and the ocean and the rest of creation to be in awe of this wonderful but terrifying and this daunting invitation to join that chorus that the rest of the universe participates in every day.